Now, I promised you that I'd bring you everything that I come across that keeps the Epstein files in the conversation. Well, look no further than Mr. Ben Black, Donald Trump's handpicked head of the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, an agency that you probably never heard of, that quietly decides where hundreds of billions of taxpayer-backed dollars flow around the globe. And for months, the defense that this appointment had, it had exactly one load-bearing beam, one thing supporting Ben Black's appointment. And yes, Ben's father, Leon Black, he paid Jeffrey Epstein $170 million. And yes, the Virgin Islands Attorney General concluded that Epstein used some of that money to fund his child trafficking operations. Yes, Leon Black then paid $62 million for a settlement that brought criminal immunity for himself, his lawyers, and his agents. But the thing that supported Ben's appointment, that one beam, we were assured that Ben was clean. He had no ties to Jeffrey Epstein. That kept Ben out of the mud. And that all changed with a report this week. And that report showed that the DOJ records showed years of interactions directly between Ben Black himself and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, Black's lawyers still deny any relationship. I'll put that out there. But the documents that are being reported didn't get that memo. And yeah, you got to remember, it was Epstein's pal, Donald Trump, that nominated this guy. And J.D. Vance swore him in at the White House while Trump stood behind them, grinning like he was cashing a very old check. And I want you to look at how Donald Trump sold this. I am pleased to nominate Benjamin Black to serve as the Chief Executive Officer of the United States International Development Finance Corporation. Ben will use his financial acumen and broad deal-making expertise, and in all caps, when our nation invests, the United States of America comes first. Congratulations. Donald Trump was selling us on this guy's financial acumen, his broad deal-making expertise. But when you look, his family's marquee deal was $170 million to Jeffrey Epstein for what they called tax and estate planning. $170 million in essentially tax advice to the child trafficker to the rich and powerful. And there were people that were on the trail here. Senator Ron Wyden spent years chasing the money trail here. And then Donald Trump's Treasury Department sat on the documents. Trump's DOJ then revoked access to Wyden that he had under the last administration. So I want you to think about this, and I don't need to speculate to turn this into a story. Donald Trump installs Ben Black. Trump's Treasury buries any files that show a relationship between Black and Jeffrey Epstein. Trump's DOJ locks the drawer. Those three coincidences, holding hands, skipping on the island, all moving in the same direction. Why do you think that is? Why is the one family financially welded to Epstein also the family that keeps getting Oval Office ceremonies and buried subpoenas? But the instant a document or evidence points at Trump or his pals, like an agency head who has had his family bankroll Epstein, it all's a hoax. It's all old news. We need to stop talking about it. And while that's going on, there is still real accountability occurring around Jeffrey Epstein. It's just not happening in Washington, D.C. It's coming in New Mexico, and we've done a few stories about the Zorro Ranch. A bipartisan committee of state lawmakers, the New Mexico Truth Commission, was created to investigate what happened at Epstein's ranch outside of Santa Fe. And this week, they issued their first subpoenas, 14 of them, to the FBI, to the state's Department of Justice, to Deutsche Bank, to J.P. Morgan Chase, to the research institute that Jeffrey Epstein funded. These people are going straight at the banks and the agencies that looked the other way the entire time Jeffrey Epstein was committing his crimes. Investigators in New Mexico reopened that case into that ranch when allegations popped up that 2 bodies were buried in the hills near that ranch. And the state attorney general has asked that survivors come forward and tell their stories. Even Republicans on that commission, like Andrea Reeb, said that the thing Trump's loyalists refused to say. That Republican, Andrea Reeb, says, "We will name what happened, we will name who was responsible, and we will do so with the evidentiary regard that survivors deserve and that the law requires." Protecting survivors and holding people accountable for child abuse, it's bipartisan. It has nothing to do with politics. And yet in Washington, the most powerful government on earth installed Jeffrey Epstein's biggest client's son in a corner office and shredded any maps that would point to the money. Yet over in Santa Fe, 4 state lawmakers with a fraction of that power are issuing subpoenas to banks and promising survivors that they will get the truth they deserve. You know, it gives me a little hope that when the feds decide to cover things up, a state house committee does the job. When the federal government walks away, it tells you exactly who the system was built to protect. And we have got to keep exposing these monsters because no one else will. And that's why I'm asking you to hit the notification icon so that you will know every time I do a story like this.